Welcome to the Women in Vinyl podcast with Jen DiEugenio, founder of Women in Vinyl, and contributor Robin Raymond. This podcast facilitates conversations with those working in the vinyl record industry to educate, demystify, and diversify the vinyl community.
Hello, I'm Ariel Loh. I'm guest hosting the next two episodes of the Women in Vinyl podcast. I am one of the co-founders of Trans Music Archive, a nonprofit organization founded to help trans artists press their music to vinyl at no cost to them, as well as building out a physical archive of trans music on vinyl. Vinyl is such a great medium that we're really invested in because it's both so, ancient and future-proof, and we really value physical media as a means of preservation, especially as it is less censorable, less prone to erasure and policing, and exists outside of the heavily surveilled internet and the technology that we currently exist in. And as a marginalized community, this feels really important to us, and we're so happy to be able to be in this position to help folks press more music to vinyl and bring back some of the value of music that's been lost over the years of streaming and low artist payouts and devaluing of music as we know it. So vinyl is very sacred to us, and we're so happy to be here on the podcast to chat with some folks about what vinyl means to us, what vinyl means to us as queer people, as trans people in our community. And I'm really excited to welcome our first guest by the name of Alana to have a conversation about vinyl, specifically vinyl DJing. Alana is a New York-based, Brooklyn-based dance music vinyl collector of 18 years and current resident DJ at Public Records nightclub in Gowanus, Brooklyn. So when were you first introduced to vinyl?
Yeah, that's actually a fun question to answer because I'm 35 now, so I actually have memory of being in theater in middle school and in the production of Guys and Dolls. I was in the dressing room at the high school, and it was like the music room when it wasn't the theater dressing room, and I found two copies of vinyl records. One was Hotel California, the Eagles, and the other was Are You Experienced, Jimi Hendrix. And I didn't even have a record player, but I stole them and took them home because I was just fascinated with the record. And then I would have been 17 later on when I went to my first warehouse rave in Brooklyn, New York. And I saw the DJ. It was DJ Odie, who's a very famous New York City drum and bass jungle DJ, who's spinning on 3 turntables, all vinyl, and I was mesmerized and I was hooked immediately. And I had been in bands and stuff, and I went home and sold my guitar that week and bought turntables with the money. I never looked back. So yeah, it was dance music, and it was raves, and it was DJs that got me initially into it, but I was inexplicably drawn to it even before then. So
Did you get a chance to play those records ever until after you got the turntables after the rave?
I had them on my wall. I had them on my little 7th grade wall as artwork.
Yeah.
And I don't think I ever played them. They were lost. My parents were divorced, and those were at my mom's house. And my father was the one who still lived in the Bronx. And I was staying with him mostly in the late teen years. So I don't think I ever saw those again. She might still have them in her possession. I do not know. Maybe in her basement or something. But I never got to play them.
Did you, what are some of the earlier records you remember buying for yourself after, you kind of started diving into this?
I tell this story a lot actually, but in the beginning I didn't really know what to buy. I just knew that I wanted to DJ. And this is 2008 ish. You could go on eBay back then and type in DJ vinyl lot, and there would be old DJs from the 90s selling their collection on eBay in random 40 record party packs, and they would be super cheap. It'd be 30 cents a record plus shipping. And they don't do that anymore because Discogs runs everything, and like, vinyl is some of it's worth its weight in gold. A different era for sure, but I bought from this DJ, this guy, I bought like a box of 40 or 50 records and did not know it at the time, but a lot of those records ended up being ridiculously valuable underground dance music record, and like a DJ who had serious taste, serious underground house music taste. And those were my first few ones. And it was stuff that I still play to this day, like label wise, um like Big Beat, Strictly Rhythm, House Jam, Chicago stuff, New York stuff, tracks, older stuff, like classic house music.
That's
But the
awesome.
good stuff, yeah.
I remember those eBay days when I was like 15 myself. I was making a lot of like hip hop beats, and I was like very into like Jay Dilla and DJ Premier and Ninth Wonder. And I was also buying those eBay lots with like 70s, 80s like soul records, because we didn't have a record store near us growing up. So I like would buy those and like would flip those samples. Unfortunately, I do not know where those records are now. But yeah, the eBay days when you could just buy like a lot of 30 and just like arrives in some like crusty cardboard box to your front door.
Yeah, it was amazing. And you know what? That box, that initial box of 40 records, there was at one point when I was like 25, I did cull my collection because I just had too many records to fit in my apartment at the time. And I threw out a bunch of stuff that I was like, this doesn't fit my taste. And I did throw out probably like a third of the records I got from that guy. And I regret it because I came to understand later that like all of it was probably I can't even remember what I threw out, but the ones that I didn't, I still play today. This is like timeless house music.
That's great that those records have been with you the whole time. I love how like the longevity of vinyl as a format. You know how it can have so many lives. It can be passed down from this person who's getting rid of their collection to you, and then you're playing it, at the nightclub over a span of, how long have you been DJing in New York?
So I bought those turntables with my guitar money, like I said. And then I promptly went to university in Buffalo, New York. But I never really was interested in my studies. I kind of just like was instantly trying to find raves and parties up there and connected with like-minded people. And we started throwing our own raves and our own parties. So I was DJing pretty quick. I moved up there when I was 18, and yeah, I think I was playing four people probably two years after initially getting my first sort of stack of like 50, 60, 100 records or whatever. And then, yeah, I mean, that's a much longer story, but I produced my first records and my first music by the time I was like 24, moved to Boston through this party out there that was all vinyl centric, and then did the same thing in North Carolina. A lot of time passed. I moved back to New York City proper in at the end of COVID. So it would have been when everything opened up in the summer of 2021. And it took a little bit because you kind of have to like network in New York City to for someone to give you a platform. But yeah, I was spinning for people probably by the following winter. So yeah, like January, February 2022.
Yeah, that's awesome that, again, this vinyl can have so much life and have given so much music to people, that you've just been playing it for so long to all these different crowds in all these different cities through different chapters of your life. And like,
Yeah.
obviously the listeners we're all here for vinyl, but it's like, I'm just always so in love with that. It's so romantic that like this one piece of music can just live so many lives in this, physical realm. Why is vinyl important to you? Like nowadays, it's like so easy to walk around with a USB and plug into some CDJs and spin. Like, what makes it worth like the effort of collecting, maintaining, bringing around a case of records, and like obviously there's a different feel to it. Like, you wouldn't be able to just spin the same exact set. Like you would be, but you wouldn't be able. It wouldn't be the same, right? Like doing the same set on a CDJ versus vinyl. What makes that like worth it to you?
I don't think it would be the same. And there's a whole lot to say about that question from different angles. But on a broad level, what makes it important to me is that, house music is gay music, it's trans music, it's queer music. It was invented by us, it was initially for us. And, vinyl is deeply tied. The culture of record collecting and record spinning is deeply tied to the culture of house music and techno music itself. And so for me, it's an archival thing, partially, because, I think a lot of records over the years, especially dance music singles and stuff that DJs were playing, have ended up in landfills one way or another, which is heartbreaking and devastating to me. So I want to collect records to keep them as a living document, an archival of, our pieces of music and our messages that we've put out in the world. And then also from, yeah, just the cultural standpoint of like, this is how we DJ'd for a really long time. Certainly, like I said, that first party I went to, every DJ there, this would have been the late 2000s. It was right when it was ending. I vividly remember like the following year, 2009, noticing that a lot of DJs were switching over to digital. And that was before CDJs and controllers were really advanced. So a lot of people there was this bridge period from '09 to like 11, 12, where a lot of people were using laptops with like lower grade controllers. But it was like impressed upon me that vinyl was super important and it's part of the culture and it's like what you do. So I want to keep it alive because it's meaningful, it's tactile, and it's like the records have lives. Like you kind of alluded to this earlier, but they go from owner to owner and they go from party to party, from state to state, from country to country. And if you want to get witchy about it, like I do, they absorb the energy of the places that they're with and the people that own them and the people that play them. There's queer joy imbued from the dance floor into the record. And if you want to get scientific about it, literally the sweat from the ravers condenses in the air and then settles into the groove. So you actually have the DNA of the dance in
I love that.
in the grooves of the record. So yeah, I think it's important for a number of reasons, but those are probably the two biggest ones.
I love that so much. And like as you said, I feel like, in queer culture and trans culture and, marginalized communities, it's like it feels like being a DJ spinning vinyl, it feels like oral history. It's like feels like you're passing oral history, oral traditions down. And yeah, it has like this different impact. And I love what you're talking about with the DNA of the dance because there's something really different about that. Vinyl at the club versus like, digital, is there like a sonic aspect of it that feels really different for you? Maybe not as a DJ, but as somebody attending an event. Can you tell right away, it's like, oh, this person's spinning vinyl. And does that like hit you different? Like, how does that translate?
Yeah, so it does, but it's multiple factors, and I think it might be less out of the DJ's hands at that point and more in the hands of whoever built the sound system at the club. And then more importantly, the sound tech who's working at the club, whether or not they know how to tune the system to pick up vinyl and play it quite well and where to notch, because you're not just letting it all rip, it is EQ'd and it is notched at certain spots to get the warmest, richest sound. And then outside of the sound system and the sound tech, I think it very much matters what DJ mixer you're using, because analog is obviously, that's what vinyl is, full analog signal path. So to use a mixer that switches it to a digital signal is fine, but you are losing some of the richness, the sonic richness and fidelity that you would get out of, say, like a very high quality rotary. For example, like a Yuri 1620 is legendary in the vinyl world for DJs because of the sound it produces. Fader mixers, like the original Allen and Heath Zone mixers, before they were sort of mass produced in China, back when they were made to order in the early 2000s, are legendary for their rich, warm sound because it's all analog. So the mixer is actually super important, and I think a lot of people don't know that. Because you could have the best club in the world, best everything. The mixer could be the end point if that's not good. I always say there's no point in playing vinyl records over like a Pioneer DJM, but some people are married to that mixer for the effects and other reasons. So, and also the V10 is supposedly analog. I don't know. We could go deep on that, but I just mean to say that the mixer is super important.
Yeah, and that's like a perfect segue into I want to talk about your residency at Public Records. For our listeners who aren't familiar with Public Records, it's like a legendary nightclub in New York and Brooklyn. Could you tell us a little bit about the space, particularly their sound system?
Yeah. So it's a great club. It's like you said, I think of it when I think of New York clubs in the modern era, it's like the big four. So it's like nowadays, basement, good room, and public records. And those are kind of the main, I think, like big four nightclubs that really are carrying along this culture as I learned it and, the proper way. And, a lot of like clubs don't even have turntables anymore, or don't understand the importance of vinyl or aren't as deep into the culture and the vibe of house and techno, like these clubs are. So they're proper clubs and they all have turntables because they're proper clubs.
Mhm.
So Public Records came around, I want to say 17 or 18. So it arrived a little bit later than nowadays in Good Room, but it's run by Francis, who is of the group Frank and Tony. They run the record label Scissor and Thread. So like a lifelong, DJ and vinyl person himself. And so he understood from the jump the importance of, like I said, the mixer, the sound system, the sound techs. They have a custom built sound system in the atrium, and upstairs, the sound room, which is the main room in the club, is a Void sound system. So it's not custom, but Void is like top of the line up there with Function One and that kind of stuff. Danley. And yeah, it's just a wonderful place. It's like so much thought goes into it just from the architecture and the ambiance. It's actually in a historic building, or that's like the Historical Society of Brooklyn has categorized it as an historical spot. It's like all brick. I forget what it used to be. It was either like a water treatment thing or whatever, but it's very unique and it has a wonderful ambiance. And it's built for vinyl. It's the perfect club for vinyl because they have these amazing sound systems and they have these mixers, this rotary mixer is called the Isono 420, which is like theoretically one of the most high fidelity mixers you can have for playing a vinyl record. So
Cool, that's amazing. Can you tell us about, all the times that I've been to Public Records, it's like the sound is always just on point, the vibe is great, and their curation is obviously really, intentional and carefully done as well. Can you explain your time at the residency a little bit? How did you come into that? What has your experience there been like? Like, what's it like to spin vinyl on that specific sound system, as well as like being able to play there, week after week and like really kind of get settled in and dialed in, and what has that whole experience looked like for you?
it's been great. I mean, this is more just like a DJ thing than a specifically vinyl thing. But I always say, like, you could be the best DJ in the world, and if you're not doing the like social side of it, it's a lot harder to get a break like that where you get onto something like Public Records. But I was working coat check there many, many years ago. And at the time, the now booker, Ian G, shout out to Ian G. He's the one who does all that wonderful curation that you're talking about. He has a great ear and a great sense for what is good. We worked together on the lower levels and we just got to talking weekend after weekend. And we both discovered that we really love house music and we both go really deep on it. And so fast forward several years when he became booker and I was like spinning more and kind of like it shifted into like a full-time DJ thing. He asked me to come in. It was 3 years ago now, I think, to open for this very, very famous German DJ, Ian Pooley, who was a dream come true because that box I mentioned earlier of the 40 records, one of the records I got was this record by him on X Force Factor, 1995. It's called Today. It's a very, very special record. I've heard a lot of people play it. Eric Drew and Octo Octo have played it before. It's a great record. So I got to open for him, and that was kind of like just a breakout set. I still have people walk up to me and talk about that set. It was just really good. And I was then on their radar. And then I was asked to come back several times. I closed for Mike Servito, opened for Prosumer, just like a bunch of different ones that were just kind of one-offs where I was brought in from the outside. And then they asked me at the end of last year if I'd be interested in the residency. And I said yes. And what it's like is great because it's like I can sculpt what I want to do more. and I can like I now that I have a little bit of like experience with the club and I kind of know like what the crowd likes and everything else, I feel like I bring some of my best work there. And yeah, it's just like atrium can get like really deep. Upstairs you can play like funk and soul and jazz. And then the sound room, you can basically go as hard as you want with like the raviest type of high energy records you have. So it's got a little something for every corner of my record collection. It's got a room for every corner, and yeah, I love it. And every other DJ who's there is also just so on point with their selection. And most of us play records in some form or another there because it's just the perfect spot to do it.
Yeah. How do you prepare for a set? Especially, you have all these different rooms with different vibes, energies, different audiences on different nights. Do you rehearse sets? Do you have like this ritual? How do you select for the night? How do you pull records from your library of music?
Yeah, it's a great question, and there's a couple different variables that go into it. But I heard this DJ who people probably know from Basement and the Wrecked parties, Ron Like Hell, one time he said, like, I take at least 8 hours to go through all my records to pull for a DJ set. And I'm like, I take that even further. I'm like, I like at least a couple days to really go through everything. I mean, like, it's almost silly. It's almost like I'm not getting paid enough money to put that many hours into, like sculpting the bag. But there's two main differentiators, and that's whether I'm opening the club
Mm,
or whether I'm continuing from the previous DJ.
right, of
I
course.
think when you're continuing, I bring a mixed bag of all stuff that I like that can be different energy levels and can go different directions because you have to play to the crowd that's already where they're at, right? So if they're
Absolutely.
worked up and they're ready to go, it's like energy, go out the gate with energy. Like that was how it was for Mike Servito last year when I closed for him. If they're like lulled down and it's a deeper, chiller moment, then you don't want to go 0 to 100 like that. It's unsettling to the listener. So I don't plan any of those transitions. Maybe like a couple, I'll be like, oh, these two records in particular are like perfectly key matched at this speed, and the drums have this wonderful call and response. So maybe I'll make sure that I play this one after this one.
Mm.
But for the most part, it's not planned at all. Opening, a lot different because when you're opening a nightclub or a rave or even a festival, you are setting the tone, and that's so super important. And I never play like a house record out of the gate when I'm opening a room. It's always either ambient, R&B is a good choice, soul music, funk music, slow boogie, disco, that type of stuff, organically working up to house over the course of, depending how long my set is, like if it's 2.5, 3 hours, usually like 1 hour, I'll be like working it up to house. And so that is almost fully planned down to the like bar sometimes.
Wow.
Like my first set there ever, which was Ian Pooley, opening for Ian Pooley, the whole set, all 2 hours was planned down to the measure and was rehearsed. So it could go both ways. It really just depends on the situation.
That's incredible. Yeah. It's really like coming ready with your tools, and then sometimes you have like this plan you're going to execute on. And sometimes you're just like showing up with all the colors you think you might need, and then you're like throwing it together on the spot, depending on the crowd. Because obviously the crowd is such a factor, right? It's like it's the conversation between the music and the listener, and yeah.
There's maybe another thing that I would mention. I don't know if I'll talk about it with Eris and Maya. They probably will bring it up, but like the importance of the storytelling, because a lot of times now, new records that come out will be like individual songs. Like if it's an EP, it'll be like 4 songs. We typically don't get singles anymore. And the singles back in the day used to come with the club mix, right? The dub mix, and then maybe something like the vibe mix or the 4 a.m. mix, and then the acapella.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of the vinyl for me, right? Because like if I'm trying to tell a story, send a specific message because there's a message in the music. I'm pulling from those acapellas and like putting it over other music, or I'm like playing the vocal mix at a very intentional spot to something that Ron Hardy, Frankie Knuckles, these other sort of legendary gay, queer DJs used to do would be Larry Levan too, Paradise Garage, would be to intentionally play songs that speak to one another thematically or maybe even literally with the lyrics in the vinyl. For example, my last set at Public last month, the last set downstairs, I had done that. It was this record from the UK that not many people know about. I think the label is like Music Groove, but the record was Diva to Diva. I can't remember the title, but that's the artist, Diva to Diva. And it was like this girl discovering that her boyfriend is cheating on her, and then like she's like talking to her friend, finds out that her friend is the one unwittingly was the one that the boyfriend was cheating on her with, and then they both like turn on him and are like kick rocks. And then the immediate record I mix into that one is Hard Soul featuring Ron Carroll, rest in peace, another Chicago legend on vinyl, called Back Together, which is like this song of like this guy like apologizing for hurting the woman in his life and doing, in that juxtaposition for cheating on her with her best friend, and it makes so much sense with them together on top of the fact that they're in the exact same key.
Yeah.
So yeah, the storytelling is like a huge part of the vinyl for me. We don't even really have lyrics in house music anymore. It's kind of
Yeah.
sad. I'm trying to bring that back. I have some productions I'm working on this year that I have vocalists lined up for. I'm gonna make some old queer house music the way it used to
Yeah.
be made.
Can you tell us a little bit about your own original music?
Yeah, so I have a bunch that I released a long time ago before I transitioned, and I am just sort of strange about everything I did artistically and musically before I
Yeah.
transitioned, and I don't really want to be associated with any of it, but I had releases on a couple of smaller independent labels, one in Buffalo, and then was on a bigger label. I had a release, the one right before I transitioned was on a bigger label in Chicago, who was run by a somewhat famous DJ out there. And then I stopped making music, and then DJing became such a huge passion for me that I really wasn't focused on making music for a long time. And I had to sell a lot of the gear, blah, blah, blah. But this past like 6, 8 months, I've started buying gear again and I'm making music. And yeah, original music for me is like rooted in tradition because that's the kind of music I like to play. Like, again, it's just like culturally special for gay and queer and trans people is like this, sort of like diva house sound. It's just
Yeah.
like so good. And it's specifically tied to New York City and Chicago. Also, that aspect of it to me is important.
Yeah, absolutely. As an artist and as a DJ, you're mentioning like vinyl used to be like released a little differently with the different mixes and stuff. If you had your way, like what do you hope the vinyl industry specifically in dance music like this will look like in the future? Yeah, like what could be improved? What do you hope to see labels do? What do you hope to see record stores carry? How can like the vinyl industry really move back into this place where kind of like the glory days of dance music on vinyl. And I don't know if that's to assume that we're not in that right now. But I do know a lot of the crate digging happens with older music.
Yeah, so it's tough because you know, cream, cash flows, everything around me, economically speaking, it's tough these days. But like it's tough in America. In Europe, the vinyl culture is still like really strong. We still have DJ based shops, and all this stuff. So, what I would like to see is labels putting out small runs of records, and I get that if it's like 100 press run, it's going to make the ultimate price at the end user like 24, 25, $26. I get that. But then again, like if you press 500 records, there's a question of like, are they going to be all sold or not? Oftentimes the answer is no. And I think like you just look at New York City, like, okay, biggest city, arguably the most poppin' city for dance music in America. We no longer have a big DJ shop. They do have one in Chicago, Gramophone. It's very famous. It's been open since I think like the 50s or the 60s, but it is like the DJ shop out there. So New York needs that. Labels need to press small runs and they need to get the kids interested, right? And that's why like education is so important. And that's why DJs spinning it are so important because, like I said in the beginning of this interview, my moment with it was when I walked into that party and I saw the DJ cutting up the records with a lot of technical skill and just being mesmerized by that, playing the turntable like an instrument more than just like a player. And I think that that's a timeless feeling. I think that like kids can walk into a party and see the DJ doing that with records and be like, I want to do that. I don't think that that feeling will ever fade. I think what makes it fade for them is when they realize like, oh, I need to dump a lot of money into this. And it's just like so much easier to buy a USB and like go on track stores. But, I think that that also homogenizes your art because everybody has that resource. You know what I mean? Um, when you're playing vinyl, you sound more unique, hands down, full stop, just because the collection is different. It's totally different. It's a lot of old music, but we just need to be pressing new music. We need to be really sure about whether or not it's going to sell. And ultimately, that's going to be the artists building real, true fan bases that believe in the music they're making. And in order for that to happen, people just need to be into the vibe of vinyl. And so it's a tall order.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
that's one of the things that we're trying to do at Trans Music Archive is like, we're printing those 100 pressing, 250 pressings, and it's like, we want to make sure we try and sell all of them because we want to make that money back to be able to print more, for more artists. But it is hard. It
totally.
is hard, but I have faith. I feel like Gen Z is like such a large part of the market for vinyl, and I do think, as you're saying, it's like when you roll up to a club and you see of DJ spinning vinyl like that, it's like it feels like a whole different ball game. It feels like they're playing a different game, and
Absolutely. Yeah.
really, really special.
Can I just say one last thing to labels?
Yeah,
Stop pressing stupid multicolored vinyl records. Stop pressing it on weird colors. It does not
yeah,
matter. It only makes the record more expensive.
yeah.
Press it on black. Press
I'm
it on
black.
black.
Yeah.
Please press it on black. I'm begging you.
Um, I wanted to just ask you, as we move towards the end of the episode, if I was like a younger kid, a teenager, a college student, whatever, I'm like at the club, I see vinyl, I'm like, wow, that's incredible. I want to do that. What would you suggest to like somebody who's trying to enter this space, getting into this art form? It feels very, as we were saying earlier, it feels very like kind of it's like oral tradition. I know they have like DJ schools and stuff here and there, but far and few between for vinyl, I would imagine. And also, I feel like that's maybe not the best environment to learn a craft like this. Like, how do we get into it? As like a beginner.
Totally. If you're gonna go the school route and you're gonna get lessons, definitely do it like short, small class, preferably one-on-one. But you know, it's outside of that, just try to get a mentor because I had people mentor me. But I also locked myself in the basement for those years of like 18, 19, 20. I used to come home from classes at university and lock myself in the basement. I would spin the same 120 records I had, every endless combination for like, no lie, like 5, 6 hours a day. It takes a long time to develop the muscle memory for these like tiny, minute adjustments on the pitch fader that you need to do a long blend on two vinyl records. So it's like practice, 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 but go out and meet somebody who's doing it and try to develop a mentor-mentee relationship with them. That's, super important. And then get good at digging. So like you're not gonna know what to look for at the shop. And one way to do it is trial and error, but really like never stop reading. Like it's off screen, but I have an enormous bookcase here that's filled mostly with shit about, dance music culture, vinyl culture, lots of old like set lists from famous DJs in the late 80s, 90s. And then use that as a starting point, get on Discogs, do a bunch of hyperlink jumping, and read about all the artists, all the labels, all the tracks, everything you can, so that when you go to the shop, you know what to look for, you know what to buy, because you can buy a awesome set straight from the dollar bin. I promise you. It just takes the knowledge to know what to look for. And then final thing is like, seems like a lot of glamour and drinking and drug use, but all that stuff costs money. I would say just steer clear of all of that and
Mm.
save all your money for wax, because it's going to cost you a little bit, girl.
Yeah,
But the rewards are tenfold. It's been my lifelong passion, and it's like I'm still getting dopamine from it today. So yeah,
that's great
I love it.
advice.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Alana. This was such a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Support your local record shop.
Yeah, support your local record shops. We'll be back guest hosting next month's podcast, where Alana will actually be taking over and chatting with Octo Octa and Eris Drew, two legendary vinyl DJs. And I can't wait to hear that conversation. So please join in next month for that. For more information about Alana, you can follow her on Instagram at ALANA underscore DEEJAY, Alana underscore DJ. She's playing lots of shows around New York, so if you're around the area, please make sure to go check her out. You can also find out more about the work we do at Trans Music Archive at transmusicarchive.org, as well as at Trans Music Archive on Instagram as well. We are a nonprofit organization helping trans folks print and press vinyl, as well as providing other opportunities for trans musicians, including recording residencies, scholarship opportunities, and also in-person community events. So we really appreciate your support if you're interested in supporting our work. And last but not least, please go support Women in Vinyl for the incredible work that they're doing, centering women in the vinyl industry. Thank you so much. See you soon.
This episode has been brought to you by Women in Vinyl and Red Spade Records. Thank you for listening. Please remember to subscribe, and you can always contact us directly by visiting www.womeninvinyl.com.